Okay, so welcome, Emily, to the Be Lively Club. I'm so happy to have you here. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm great, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. We're going to be talking a lot about mothering today, and I think we're both in the thick of it. So I think we could definitely be chatting about that. For anyone who's listening, I do have my daughter in the background, so there will be a little bit of noise. But we are mums just trying to raise awareness, but also mother at the same time. So so yeah. So first of all, me and Em met on we met on Instagram, didn't we? Quite.
Yeah, I think I contacted you because you were a nurse like me and I was really interested in what you were doing.
Yeah, yeah. And I think since then we've just really, well, we've become friends, and it's been really nice to see each other's like businesses evolving and kind of getting off the ground. But yeah, they're still kind of early days, I suppose. But we're kind of doing things that we love to do and our passion. So it's great to kind of connect this way as well. And I suppose you have an amazing community on Instagram called Mothering in the Menopause, where you sort of share your journey with premature ovarian insufficiency. And so I just wanted to, could you tell us a little bit about your journey with that and how it's influenced your life and your experience as a mother?
Yeah, so premature ovarian insufficiency is essentially when your ovaries stop working normally before 40. And my journey was quite different to lots of women. So lots of women with POI, and it is quite common. It's definitely not an uncommon condition in terms like in nursing stats for us. I think it's 1 in 100 before 40, which is quite common. I was investigated because my mum was diagnosed really young, and I just wanted some kind of checks and just to be prepped for really what could happen. So my story is quite different to a lot of women who may start experiencing symptoms or maybe struggling to conceive. So when I first was investigated, I was really early 20s, and they just kept saying like, have children early and we don't really know. And they didn't do any specific investigations. I think like everything in women's health, it was just kind of brushed to the side. When I met my husband, I was 23, and we decided that actually, no, that wasn't really good enough, and that we wanted to know a bit more or be referred to somebody who did. So luckily, we got referred to fertility, and they did lots of investigations. And from those investigations, could kind of say that although I wasn't having any menopause symptoms at the time that I was aware of, because obviously it's not just hot flushes.
Yeah.
They said it looked like I was going to have an early menopause. So basically to go and try for a baby now. So that was quite a shock, but don't expect it to happen. So I really did come out of that appointment really obviously distressed and disheartened and worried about what would happen to me and to my relationship, because we'd only been together about a year. So it was quite a shock. Luckily, he was quite on board with having a family quite quickly. So we did manage to conceive, which was a huge shock. And everyone in the fertility clinic was kind of surprised. And that was a really anxiety provoking pregnancy, because everyone was really shocked I was pregnant and were really just like put a lot of pressure on the baby to get here safely. Obviously, we want all babies to arrive safely, but just knowing that that could be my one time shot at being pregnant, it did feel very nerve-wracking. So I had my daughter and everything was fine. Again, no symptoms that I was aware of after having her, although I did have gestational diabetes, which looking back now, there is more evidence that you're more at risk of diabetes if you have an early menopause. And I'm really slim and not really a normal client who would have gestational diabetes. So I've always wondered now, like, whether that was linked. After LOD, we decided to try again. Unfortunately, had a miscarriage, which was obviously hugely distressing for anyone, but particularly if you've got fertility issues. And then when I kind of come to terms with the miscarriage and we felt ready to try again, I wasn't ovulating anymore, and I was definitely starting to experience some mood changes. And it's always hard to know, isn't it, are mood changes related to trying for a baby, because that's so emotive, or was it perimenopause? Well, I guess I'll never know. So we paid to go privately to see a fertility specialist who had a special interest in POI. She was amazing, and I managed to conceive twins using Clomid, which kind of stimulates your egg release. And I was really, really obviously over the moon, but it was when the twins were about 8 weeks old that I really started to suffer. It was really difficult looking back because a lot of the symptoms of menopause are the same as postpartum symptoms because of the hormone drop. So although I thought something was wrong and kept reaching out for help, I can see why at the start I might have been getting fobbed off, but they weren't getting better and they were getting worse. And there were a lot of other things that aren't postpartum symptoms, like so some of my worst symptoms were heavy periods, but to the point where I couldn't really leave the house. That was getting just put down to having twins, which understandably. Brain fog, really poor pelvic floor function, so quite a lot of incontinence, real mood changes, which wasn't normal for me, night sweats, hot flushes, palpitations. So palpitations is not really a common postnatal symptom, and they weren't improving. So I eventually went to the GP. I tried over 16 times to get HRT, and I'd already had a diagnosis and I'd seen a specialist. So I don't really know what went wrong because there's not many things. I mean, obviously, if a GP got a letter from like a paediatrician, they would never like say, "Oh no, that's wrong."
So that was the gold standard for anyone that goes through, who has that diagnosis, is to be put on HRT.
They were just saying that I wasn't symptomatic, and while I was having periods, that I didn't need HRT. But obviously now I know that that is definitely not a reason. I mean, one of the consultants said, if you're having heavy periods, you've certainly got enough estrogen. Obviously now I know that heavy periods are a sign that your estrogen's all over the place. So it was really hard, and I think I didn't know what was going on, so I trusted the professionals. Eventually, when my mood started to suffer, my husband was kind of like, this is enough. So we went back to my private specialist, who started me on the pill straight away, which can be useful for younger women. And it's a contraceptive and it can help your periods, but it wasn't really enough for me. So then I quickly went onto the gel, and that helped pretty much instantly. But that really isn't the end. I then had progesterone intolerance. It takes a long time to find the right dose and type, and you have to change if you suddenly stop absorbing it, or find the right dose for you. And I also got diagnosed with osteopenia about a year after from having my DEXA scan. And I don't really think HRT completely replaces everything. I definitely don't feel like I did before. But I guess for me, I've never known motherhood without it either.
And I suppose in terms of having all of that to deal with, you know, it's so hard when you don't feel listened to or heard, and you feel like there's something wrong with you, and not necessarily, you know, it's like almost like you feel like you're not coping well enough with the situation when you're not being heard, and actually having your, you know, a specialist diagnosis, and then not getting the adequate treatment to help you, like, and then also looking after 3 children must have been really tough.
Yeah, really tough. And we were in COVID, so it was the first lockdown, so I didn't really see anyone. But I actually found that a bit of a blessing, because I couldn't go out anyway. I think it probably would have made my symptoms worse to be trying to go out and trying to like put on a brave face and socialise, because my brain fog was so bad. I just wanted to be at home with the babies and just get through each day, and it literally was like that. I remember I spoke to a GP, one at the same GP it was, over and over again, and I was being bedbound most days for nausea, and now I know that was because I was relying on coffee because I was so knackered, and obviously that was triggering my worst symptom, which was nausea, which again you really wouldn't associate with menopause. And she was like, "You're just tired, you've got twins, just go to bed, you've got a migraine." And I was like, I just knew something wasn't right. I think because I'm a health visitor as well, I was just like, oh God. Now looking back, I feel so foolish that I did just trust them. But I can only really, focus on what I can change now, which is helping other people. So in terms of like how it's affected my life, like I said, I haven't known being a mum without it. And it has impacted every aspect of my parenting. It's made me extremely tired. My strength, so just trying to carry the twins, like, they're so heavy. It was £7 each when they were born, so literally right from the word go, like, I couldn't get up the stairs. My legs were sore, my muscles were weak, my joints were stiff, and that was again put down to being bedbound at the end of my pregnancy. but it wasn't getting better, and I was lugging these boys around. I was knackered. The thought of chasing around the park would have been crippling, so I'm glad all the parks were locked up. My mood, like, you know, if you're having a bad day and feeling low or anxious, and then you're trying to be a really good parent, and I think because I'm a health visitor, I almost just know too much, so I know that if my mood's bad, it's going to impact my kids and their emotional well-being, and I'm like was pressurizing myself so much to be like really happy and trying to enjoy it, and also that guilt of knowing that I've got children, I should be feeling really lucky about this, and also I want to be the best mum because these are my absolute world and my like gift that I never thought I was going to have. So why is this so hard? I think a lot of the common things that mums find hard, like the overwhelm, the rage, you know, that's amplified when you've got a hormone deficiency. And also for me, I think having a daughter and those worries for her, like, will she have POI? Because it's really strong in my family. My mum and my sister both have it. So for like my daughter and my niece, are they going to really struggle, or will they be taken seriously by then? I really hope so, but I guess you just don't know how. Just depends who you see.
And I think listening to that, you know, and the typical conversation that's happening around menopause at the moment, you know, for women that are going through it in the kind of, I would say, the natural age, you know, there's a lot of reflection on the difficulties and the challenges that women face even at the natural age, but often it's kind of represented as this second spring or the third age, and absolutely, if it means that you have to then have a bit of a life audit and go, actually, these are things that are not serving me, these are probably things that are making my symptoms worse, I need to like sort those things out. But actually, when you go through an early menopause for whatever reason, whether that is POI or going through cancer treatment, or you know, that can then really, those symptoms with your everyday life, you know, particularly when you've got young children or a young family, that's not the same experience, is it?
No, it's really not. And you don't want to be in your second spring. You want to be in your first spring, springing around with your kids. You don't want to be worrying about like vaginal dryness and hot flushes. It's still, I find, really taboo and embarrassing when you're younger. There's been a real increase in, like we say, normal menopause awareness, but I still think a complete lack in early menopause, and especially if you've got children. It's almost like you've either got children and that's brilliant, you were managed to conceive now, kind of what you're moaning about, or you haven't got children, in which case there's so much support fertility wise, there's so many brilliant support groups and charities, but there's nothing if you've got children. So that's kind of why I started my Instagram page, really.
And it has grown quite a lot, and I think you've been really active on there in terms of raising the awareness and actually the really difficult parts of your experience. And I think, you know, for me, looking at that, this is me trying to multitask, you know, having that experience and sharing that online, you know, you have been able to help people, and people have been coming forward with, you know, the similar experience.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I get messages every day, I'd say, with either new women or women I've spoke to before with symptoms, and I'd say the most common ones are overwhelm and rage. And obviously rage is, I laugh because I know, I mean, I've thrown plates of food across the room, not when my children are present, but that's really unlike me. I love food and I just wouldn't waste my food. Maybe not the plate throwing, I'd throw the plate, but not with the food on. And it's really hard because you can't do that with children around. You have to hold it in, and that's going to have a real detrimental impact on our mental well-being if we're like just not looking after our own nervous system and our needs, because we're like holding it all in, because we as mums, we always put ourselves bottom of the pile. So I guess, I originally created my page to find support for myself, and now it's changed as I've got so much more confident and learned so much more with the diagnosis, and I feel like I've done really well, like raising my 3 kids through this. And I think being a health visitor has really helped me understand what they need and how I can help myself, because I'm obviously supporting women that are struggling most days. So then I decided to create it into more of a small business, I guess you could say, but mainly just to provide a network away from social media, because it is draining being on social media. And I think that comparison of comparing yourself to either normal mums or normal menopause, if there is a normal such of either, can be really damaging if you're struggling with both at the same time.
Absolutely. No, I think, and have you you've sort of mentioned that typically women with POI don't necessarily have the opportunity or struggle to get with fertility. Are there any other and then because you felt kind of sort of alienated from that sort of community, are there any other misconceptions about POI that people think and have kind of made it difficult for you sort of being able to be open around other people because of those misconceptions?
I think there's a big focus on it being just the same as menopause for early, but it's really not. It's so much more than that. I think the emotional toll, and like I said, I don't think HRT does make you ever feel how you did, and the diagnosis is often so traumatic that I really don't feel that it is the same as menopause early, because it is such a life change, and you have to make big changes to your lifestyle. And I think that's the other thing, that HRT fixes everything. It really doesn't. It's so much more than that. I've had to change so many things about my lifestyle, about things I eat, things I drink. I can't drink much alcohol, can't drink much caffeine. I get really tired. I don't have many friends now. I used to be like a real socialite, and now I've just got a few really best friends that I see and that I can really trust with telling them how I feel. I've really given myself a break with the kids. I think I had so much pressure on myself to be like the perfect mum. Again, I think the health is side was hard from everything we learn, and then just me sometimes being like, you're going to have to watch TV all day because my legs are really sore, I can't get up, or I feel really sick. And the nausea, I think, is really hard to manage with children. Any of the physical symptoms, I think, are really hard, because it's exhausting chasing around it after toddlers, isn't it?
And then having the time to actually do all of the things that we're on the other side of the coin, in terms of making our symptoms better, like exercising and eating the right foods and sleep and mental health. Like it is hard, even like I'm for myself, and as a new mum, my daughter's 10 months old, it's really, really challenging to even fit in exercise and to eat well when you're tired and your family don't like eating the food that you want to eat, you want to eat junk food and you're like, I want some vegetables.
It's really hard.
It is really, really tricky. I really, really feel for you, and I think in terms of like the support that people can get, can you recommend any places? And obviously I really want you to talk about your community that you've spent a lot of time to create, and you spend a lot of time helping women and talking through those things. So it'd be really lovely to sort of go through some ways that people can find support that you found really helpful, and then how they can access your support as well.
I mean, I think the first thing that women need to do if they're in a situation similar to me is you need to find a good healthcare professional to get the right treatment, because of that is fundamental to making you feel better. I know lots of women aren't keen on HRT, but unfortunately, if you're younger, you really, really do need it. I think I'm living proof of that now with having osteopenia, and that was likely due to the delay in HRT. So you want to find a really good healthcare professional who's going to understand the differences, because it is really different. It's not like normal menopause. It's not like an optional thing. It's crucial. There's lots of different blood tests you need and investigations. You need a DEXA scan, genetic testing, various other blood tests. It can have real big consequences for female family members, your daughter, if you have children. Fertility, so getting a good fertility specialist who's going to really understand the impact on POI after you've had a baby, because it's not just about fertility. I think getting a support group that really serves you. So the Daisy Network's brilliant for POI, but I didn't find it that helpful because there was no one on there I could relate to with children, and there was no kind of resources or meetups specifically if you've got children. And obviously, being a caring, kind person, I don't want to go onto a network where I know there's lots of women who are going to struggle with fertility and start moaning about how hard I'm finding it with my kids. So that is kind of why I created it. I think being kind to yourself, my God, think about, I always think on days where I'm like, I can't do this, I'm not doing a good job as a mum. Someone watching me, what on earth would they say? Because they would be like, oh my goodness, 3 little kids in lockdown, menopause, like, whoa. And I think, just trying to think, how would your best friend like talk to you? And actually talking to your family or friends is really important, and your partner, you know, how hard it is, what you're struggling with, how they can help you. It's really key to educate yourself, because unfortunately you're not generally, 9 times out of 10 you're going to get told the wrong advice, unfortunately. So educating yourself, being familiar with the guidelines, and look after your mental health, because I think that's really important. There's a lot of chat about how antidepressants may not help if it's low mood related to low hormones, but they are going to help you if you're really stressed because you've got little children. You're also maybe coming to terms with your diagnosis, which is hugely traumatic. Maybe you've had a different route to being a mum than what you planned. And there's absolutely no shame in having like a little boost while you're in this really chaotic time of your life, because you're not in your second spring where maybe you're working less hours at work and haven't got little kids. You're very much in your first spring, chasing them around and little time for you. And it's really important, I think, to look after yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important that we reduce the stigma around that, because I think a lot of the time we think that HR is going to fix that, but actually, you know, if you were someone without a hormone deficiency, you still have to deal with life. So HRT is just going to help with that deficiency and help with some of the symptoms, but sometimes we still have that life, and you know, it's very difficult nowadays. There's lots going on, you know, we're running our kids from one activity to another, you know, and like you say, we know so much more, so we're always stressing about, you know, is my child going to be, you know, going to grow up and be emotionally regulated and be a functioning human being when they're older, you know, based on my low mood and my anger and all of that going on as well. It's just draining.
It's so draining
thinking about that and constantly worrying about the future. And I know lots of like sort of other practices can really help, like you say, being kind to yourself, being mindful in the moment and not thinking about the past or the future, and just trying to be as present as possible. But that is very challenging, I think, to have that time to do that. But I think getting outside can definitely help with that. And I know
definitely
getting out, walking the dog, you know, just to have a breather away from other people, and trying to deal with them is really difficult. It is a good way to do it. So and I think is there anything else can we talk about your membership?
So I've created a membership which is away from social media, which is something that I really wanted to do. So that's why you have to pay for it, essentially, because I have to use a different membership platform. But I didn't want it on Facebook or Instagram, because then just the dreaded scrolling where you're comparing yourself to everyone else. I don't think that's helpful. So we have a speaker a month, which is somebody who's going to be supportive of our struggles. We have a meetup a month, which is virtual. And then I upload lots of resources, blogs, and a guide every month. And then people can message me whenever they want. So I do get lots of private messages on there rather than public. And I guess it's going to take time for people to feel confident. And that's what I'm trying to do, is create a community where you can say, you know, how much you're struggling with your vaginal dryness, or you can't go out because you're a bit incontinent and you think your hormones are low, and how do you use the vaginal pessaries, and all those things where you just wouldn't feel confident to maybe put on a public forum. And then equally all those things like, I can't cope with my kids today, I'm really struggling with them, what can I do? Because that is so normal, and I don't want us to feel like just because we have POI, and I never ever take for granted having them, but I'm also aware that I'm completely within my rights to find this bloody hard work.
And there's nothing like having either a friend or a community that you can vent to without feeling judged. That's very rare, I think, because a lot of people just want to fix things and, you know, don't, or they want to put it back onto them, or, you know, and I know people willingly want to, you know, help in any way they can, but sometimes it's just nice to have a place where you can just vent and not feel like you need to be fixed, or, you know, that, you know, or feel judged or have someone's opinion. I think just knowing that there's some solidarity in the experience that you're going through, I think is really powerful.
Yeah, thank you. I hope that it's really helpful for women, and I hope that they can feel less alone and less like I did.
Yeah, absolutely. And I, you know, and I think, you know, like you say, 10 quid a month is like a coffee a week. The amount of money I spend on coffees, you know, I think I saw something the other day where a mum was at a drive-through and she said, can I have an iced latte, please? And the child goes, can I have a cookie? And she goes, oh no, we've got cookies at home. She's like, we've got coffee at home. And she was like, can I have some cookies, please? So, you know, it's, yeah, there's so much, you know, I think that would be far more, you know, coffee helps, absolutely.
Yeah,
Coffee is lovely.
definitely.
But I think, you know, this information just takes time, and our experience and our expertise and the platforms we have to put these things on, you know, they do cost money. So, you know, I think it's, yeah, I think what you're doing is amazing, and I'm really positive about that going forward. I think, you know, once you get some traction and more women on that platform, I think it's really going to grow into something amazing.
Oh, thank you, Em. Yeah, because long term, I've got so many really good ideas for it. So I am hoping that people want to join and it does well, because I just want to be able to provide like an amazing service for these women who have little children to deal with on top of all this.
Yeah. And for anyone watching, I do apologise for the screeching in the background. My daughter did wake up from her nap prior, way before me and Em started this. And we really wanted to do it, so press through. So I do apologise if there's any additional screeching, but I'll try and get them edited out. But anyway, this is us doing what we do whilst also being a mum. And I think hopefully that just comes across as being a bit more real. So
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, but yeah, thank you so much for your time, Em. I really appreciate it, and yeah, and good luck with everything.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.